The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or to view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Thank you all for uploading all your stuff last night. We do watch everything, just so you know, and it's really, really helpful for us. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. I thought we'd start off today by doing just a quick exercise where you say the point of your video in 1 to 2 sentences. And I was thinking about this last night because it's actually a really nuanced thing, understanding the difference between what the point of your video is and what your video does. I was trying to think of a good way to explain it last night and this morning, and I think that might be the best way for me to understand it. And that's why I gave that example of the snot video, right? Because the point of the video that I made about snot wasn't to explain what snot is. That's what my video does. But the point of it is to show that this material that you take for granted that's in your body actually does all these XYZ amazing things. So does the difference between those two things make sense to you guys, or do you recognize the difference between those two things? So, for instance, Joshua, your video may be about what binary search is, right? But that's not the point of your video. That's what your video does. In achieving the point of your video, explaining what binary search is sort of a happy afterthought, right? But it's not what drives the video forward. So if we could just go around and pitch the point of your video in 1 to 2 sentences. And the more specific it is, the better, right? Because we can generalize things like, the point of my video is to explain how amazing snot is, but that's actually not that different from the point of my video is to explain what snot is, right? I've just thrown in an adjective, basically. So does that sound okay to everyone? And I think this will be helpful because once you really think of what the thesis of your video is, it's going to help you a lot in scripting because you'll always be able to go back to that big point, right? If you're scripting with the objective of explaining what a fractal is, that's what Yulia's video is about, it's really easy to get lost in the details, right? So that's the whole point of this exercise. Does anyone want to go first? Otherwise, we'll just go in order.
I'll go first.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Josh.
So you were just highlighting that my video was about it was about the binary search algorithm, but I guess the theme here is why can't I find my stuff and how can I find better? That's what the theme is about. And the question is, can Google teach me how to do my own search in my life better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good start, right? Because we were talking about yesterday of the power of questions. But again, the point of your video isn't the question. The point of your video is the answer to the question. So what if you go from there and try to go for 2 sentences that try to answer those questions?
Do you have an example?
Well, wait, say the questions again.
Why can't I find my stuff? And how can I find it better?
Okay. So, Josh, how can you find your stuff better?
If we keep a list of like where is it located, or better yet, if they're positioned in a way that has a relationship among them. Yeah. So it's kind of like if you put your stuff in the toilet, you know everything you need to use in the toilet, you put them in that location. And so you avoid putting things in places where they don't need to be there, but you place them in things where the relationship is natural. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that the way you organize objects isn't just for aesthetic purposes. It can actually change the time and efficiency in which you find things, yes. Which doesn't sound like a big deal, until you realize that that's the fundamental way that something as huge as Google uses. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that feel like more of a point than this is how a search engine works?
That's more of a point.
As more of a point?
That sounds like something worthy of writing down. I mean, like for me at least, maybe I'm a visual person, but like that's a really important concept that we just figured out, right?
It's a super nuanced thing and very difficult to figure out. It's a lot easier to figure out someone else's point than your own, actually, which is why I wanted you guys to come up with a script sometime tomorrow. It's a lot easier for me, at least as an editor, to give productive feedback when I actually have like something tangible in front of me. So your questions were a really great starting point. And the script that you wrote is also a really great starting point because there's a lot of material to work with. But I wouldn't have been able to figure out that that was your point unless I had had those materials, right? The questions are a super good starting point. Oftentimes, the point of your video is going to be the answer to those questions, right? So the questions set up the video, but the point of the video is not the questions.
It's like the difference between a symptom and a disease from a doctor's perspective, right? If that's a different way of thinking about it. If you keep asking like why is something itching, and then you finally understand like the core reason to why, that's I think what you're trying to get there.
Yeah. And I think it's a very compelling way to set up not just video, but scientific papers, talks. Anytime you're trying to sell an idea to someone, grant proposals, oftentimes you'll ask somebody, you know, you're going to this conference, what are you going to do? And their answer is, well, I'm going to talk about the research that I did, right? And like, that's not really helpful. Obviously, you're going to talk about the research you did. What I want to know is, what is your research? I know that you're going to talk about binary search, probably from the title of your video. What I want to know is, what is it, right? So let's do this one more time. Can you describe the point of your video in 2 sentences or less?
The way we could find things better is the way we could. I can't really think of what right now.
That's a good start. That's good. Right. So the way we can find things better, you're trying to relate a concept or an everyday experience that we have, like organizing things. So the way we organize things.
Yeah, the way we find things better is the way Google could find our results better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a much stronger point than the questions you had initially, and saying the point is to explain what binary search is, right? And you can flesh that out a little bit more, but do you see where we're going with this? Yulia, we're going around doing 1 to 2 sentence explanations of what our videos are.
Okay.
Do you want to, let's have other people go since you just got here. Paul, do you mind going next?
Sure.
So mine's about using principles that kids are already familiar with, like floating and sinking, to show an application of naval architecture, specifically how to prevent ships from sinking using subdivision and Archimedes law.
Okay.
So that is very informative. That's like a perfect description of what your video is going to be. That may be verbatim what you put as the summary in the YouTube video, right? Like that's going to be super helpful to a teacher who's like looking through the videos and wanting to find out what the videos are about. So I guess my question would be, what are the actual principles that kids learn that would help them understand
The ship and the subdivision.
So kids are familiar with floating and sinking because what was it, 2nd grade or something like that.
and not just kids, but everyone.
Yeah, right.
So you could start off, most people are familiar with the concepts of floating and sinking.
Right, but how you can be able to like divide your ship so that it can float when it's damaged. I don't know if I think I'm kind of going through.
No. That's a great start. And oftentimes what I personally like a lot, and maybe this is something that we've been repeating over and over again, But the whole concept of the unexpected, the familiar becoming unfamiliar, as Chris was talking about, the fact that a huge piece of technical equipment like a ship can be protected from sinking with using just the basic principles that even second graders know is actually really amazing. Right, so maybe that's something that you can sort of play off of in the point of your video, that the concepts that we learn as children, like why things float and why things sink, are actually the building blocks of knowing how to protect machinery like submarines from sinking even when they get damaged. You know, and like the wording of that obviously isn't super great, but
like, yeah, that an aircraft carrier, which is one of the most sort of complicated machines ever built, is based on the fact that it can even float is based on this very simple principle. Sure.
yeah.
And you know that you learned in first grade.
Yeah. And I think I think that's like a very strong point to the video actually. I personally love the idea of complexity from simplicity. That the things that people often think of as being really complicated, like naval architecture or systems biology, are actually built off of really simple concepts and really simple ideas. Does that make sense to people? Okay. David, how will we go with you next?
The point of my video is that some people are naturally predisposed to better survive the next ice age.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Some people are better disposed to what?
Some people are better predisposed to better survive the next ice age.
The next ice age.
Yeah, and they could be predisposed by like genetically or physically, or maybe they just do meditation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually that is a point, right? That's a thesis, that's an argument. And I think that's a very interesting one. But notice that it wasn't, the pitch wasn't, why are some people more predisposed to this? Or why do I feel cold but my friend doesn't? Right? The pitch or the point is an answer to those questions. Does anyone have feedback or suggestions on maybe ways that David could alter the point at all? I think, and again, no one is ever going to read your point, right? No one is ever going to see your thesis written out before they watch your video. The idea is that they're going to watch the video and they're going to come to the same conclusion that you've written. So it's okay if like the wording's not perfect because no one's ever going to read it. They're just going to watch your video. But I guess if you were going to publish it, I would open up with things like genetic makeup or physiological differences among people are what might predispose certain humans to survive the next ice age. Kenneth, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. The most succinct point I can think of is letting them know that time travel right now is not doable yet. Yeah, that's the most succinct point I can think of.
Sure.
If I want to elaborate a bit more on that, it's to let you know that we can possibly travel forward in time faster, but traveling back in time requires too much energy.
Too much energy. Okay.
Again, nice distilled point. I guess my question would, or I would say that you could flesh that out a little bit more for the point, because that's like time travel is not possible is the ultimate argument that you're making, but it's like a super broad one. So you can include maybe why it's not possible, again, because it takes too much energy. I don't exactly know what that means, but maybe your video is going to cover that? Okay. Andrea, do you feel comfortable going?
I'll throw something out there, even though
Sure.
I think it's more what it does.
That's okay. But see, when you throw that out there, it makes it a lot easier for us to give feedback, right? It gives us something to work off of.
So the video illustrates how engineers in medicine use natural processes in our bodies to actually improve, repair or improve the human body.
So I actually think the point is in there if you just take out the first 3 words. Engineers and, what was it, scientists use natural processes in our bodies to what?
Enhance.
To improve or repair.
Yeah. I actually think the point is in there if you just get rid of the my video explains.
Which is kind of awesome considering where she started 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like the braces, like you've totally done the opposite. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
But that's what you asked me to do.
And yeah, it's awesome. I'm just saying it's awesome. Way to go.
Nathan, you want to go?
Yeah. We aren't the only ones who eat our food, and life without them would be a lot different.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Nathan had an aha moment last night, if you heard his reflection, and I'm really excited to see where you go with that. But very, very different point and answer to my question than the one you gave like yesterday. So I asked him what the point of his video was yesterday, and he was like, to explain what decomposition is. But do you see how this is like a completely different point and a much more engaging one? And in explaining and getting to that point, he is going to cover what decomposition is. Right? All right, Yulia.
Mine is repeating patterns called fractals are present in every facet of our existence and are indispensable in nature, research, medicine, and technology. In that way, mathematics helps us explore and understand the world around us.
Nice. Nice. Any feedback on that one?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. Repeating patterns called fractals are present in every facet of our existence and are indispensable in nature, research, medicine, and technology. In that way, math helps us explore and understand the world around us.
That's also a super different point than the one you had given yesterday, right? Yesterday, the point of your video was, it wasn't even like, what is a fractal? It was like, what is the philosophy of math, right?
No, was math even real, right? Like this
That was,
is
that was
amazing.
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, but like you've come so far in narrowing this concept. It's awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully with these points, it's going to help you script a tighter set of text.